Welcome back to our podcast, CRM Podcast, Chris Rankuni MC's podcast. Thank you for choosing us. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Like I said, we appreciate the fact that you chose to watch our podcast. We are continuing with politics. And remember that I myself am a member of the ANC. So all these things that I'm raising about our government, I'm not raising them out of hate, but it is important that we are independent in thinking. Yes, we appreciate the fact that the ANC has shared information with, but I'm one person who believes that we should not just accept everything that we are told, and we should also use our independent minds. And today I want to talk about Mkhonto Wesizwe, the arm wing of the ANC. For instance, I think one of the reasons why we cannot succeed in reconstructing and developing our own country, which is South Africa, it is because of the deals that our leaders made during those years when they were fighting for the freedom of South Africa. For instance, countries like Russia, China, Cuba, Libya, and so forth, they contributed in making sure that we come up with an arm wing of the African National Congress, which is called Mkhonto Wesizwe. But I have a question, but I must be honest. What constitutes a proper military? What constitutes a proper military? Because for me, a fully fledged soldier, it's somebody who has gone a proper physical training. Maybe these days, there should be technological training as well, because a lot of warfares today are fought through technology. And they should be, of course, an ideology that you're indoctrinated with. Soldiers do get indoctrinated because they all believe that they are fighting for a just cause. And for me, that is what we call indoctrination, whether good or bad, but they must be indoctrinated because they must believe in a particular ideology. The other thing that I believe is that a soldier is not just somebody who's trained to go and destroy and kill, but it has to be somebody whom, under normal circumstances, will contribute in the development of a country. And let's juxtapose Mkhonto Wesizwe soldier with an Afrikaner soldier or a Dutch soldier who arrived in South Africa in 1652. In 1652, when the Dutch soldiers arrived, the Jan van Riebeeck crew arrived. That crew, they were both soldiers, but they were also skilled. Because when they arrived in the country, they had to build all the cities that you see themselves, even though they involved our labor as black people. But themselves, they were skilled in leading that team of laborers. They had doctors amongst them. They had engineers amongst them. They had whatever other skill that was required amongst them. And that is why the South African Defense Force of the apartheid government was also equipping soldiers with skills. They'll go to technical colleges at the time. Whoever is interested in motor mechanic will focus on that. Whoever is interested in electronics will focus on that. Whoever wants to do medicine will focus on that. So skills within the military community was very key and paramount. But was that the case with our Mkhonto Wesizwe? And I'm not saying this because I'm undermining Mkhonto we Sizwe, but I want to raise a point that you must all notice. And that is, when countries like Russia, China, and Cuba and so forth, whoever was involved in training our soldiers of Mkhonto we Sizwe, when they provided that training, they did not provide training that would develop our soldiers into fully fledged soldiers. They only trained them in guerrilla warfare and sabotage. Why did they only train them in guerrilla warfare and sabotage? Because the very same Russia and China that we claim are our friends, they wanted to use us to unseat the Europeans in Africa. And after unseating the Europeans in Africa, they themselves will recolonize us. And that is happening today. If you don't believe me, I wish we had a chance to ask the late president of Zimbabwe, may his soul continue to rest in peace, President Mugabe. You know, when President Mugabe said to Tony Blair of Britain, Tony Blair, keep your Britain and I'll keep my Zimbabwe. At the back of his mind, he thought, no, I have new friends now. I have the Chinese and I have the Russians. So I don't back friendship that comes from Europe or United States. And that is why after he kicked out all those whites from the farms and so forth, and he took farms from those white people, he recruited the Chinese to come and work the ground in Zimbabwe. But the relationship did not end well. The relationship did not end well. So I'm saying to you, the type of training that we have received from these Asian countries was not preparing us to come back and rebuild the economy of Africa, but it was preparing us to come and unseat the Europeans on behalf of the Asian countries, because they and the Western countries are in permanent competition. They are competing. They both want to become superpowers. In Africa, we don't want to become superpowers. So, Mkhonto we Sizwe was offered half-baked training so that they could come and sabotage the economy in Africa and become useful in the process of unseating the West. We have managed to politically remove the West from political power. But after that, are we able to reconstruct our country on our own? No. Why? Because we're not trained. So, a fully fledged soldier, wherever he goes, in this case, I've cited an example of the crew of Jan van Riebeeck. Wherever he goes, he must be able to establish a city, given the skills that he or she has acquired. So you can't just call yourself a soldier when you do not have the necessary skills to build the economy. I'm not saying Mkhonto we Sizwe was useless, but I'm saying deliberately, those who were assisting us to train our soldiers did not offer us a complete package of a proper training required by a soldier who must take over a country. Because after you have sabotaged whatever country that you want to take over, once you are given the political power, you must be able to reconstruct and develop the economy of that country. And the reason why our own ANC comrades keep on sabotaging each other is because that's what they know best. Beyond sabotage, they were never trained in rebuilding the country or the economy. So even if we can pressurize and demand and force the ANC or whatever black political party in South Africa to offer us same this delivery that we anticipate of them, They just don't have the capacity to, because they were never trained in that. So we are just expecting too much from them because they were never trained in that. They were trained in sabotage and guerrilla warfare. So the chapter which required sabotage and has been completed. Now they don't know what to do in terms of entering the new chapter of rebuilding. When you rebuild, you should rebuild because we're trained in building. But if you are never trained in building, how will you build? So I'm saying we should start thinking outside the box. And that will then necessitate the issue of bringing in new blood in parliament, because we are being led by people who are trained in sabotage and guerrilla warfare. So they will continue to sabotage each other like they are doing in parliament instead of focusing on rebuilding the country. We need a new generation in parliament. We need a new generation in positions of government, a generation that will focus on rebuilding the country because they were trained in building or rebuilding institutions of government. But this generation that is leading the country now will never take us to Canaan. Thank you very much. See you next time.